Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith, tonight, as grieving families of dozens of kidnapped girls in Nigeria count on authorities to track down their lost children, many of whom are thought to be Muslim. Washington continues to characterise Nigeria's landscape security threats as disproportionately targeting Christians and uses Trinidadian international superstar Nicki Minaj as a spokesperson for its cause. Also, French oil giant TotalEnergies accused of complicity in war crimes, torture and the killings of dozens of civilians around a gas site in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado region. And we meet women in Zanzibar, energizing those around them. Some learning how to be solar power technicians and blazing a trail for young learners, whilst also electrifying the local economy. But we start in Nigeria, where two girls abducted by gunmen from a boarding school on Monday morning have reportedly escaped their captors. 25 students in total were taken from the government girls' comprehensive secondary school in Maga. Their families are distraught and security forces are ramping up the search for the stolen children. Nigeria has wrestled with a rise in kidnapping for ransom from schools for around a decade now. Most of the children taken this week were Muslim, and in a country with a largely 50-50 religious split with Christians, victims of complex and pervasive insecurity of all kinds hail from every corner of society. However, the United States is still threatening Nigeria with military action over what it's characterizing as the disproportionate persecution of Christians in the country. Laurent Berstecker has more.
Weeks after Donald Trump first threatened military intervention, Nigeria's foreign minister admitted the country was facing security challenges, but said allegations of religious persecution were based on false narratives.
A lot of people get their news, they get their information from social media. A lot of it tends to be false. Any country, including the US, that is willing to partner with us to tackle those problems, we more than welcome it.
The comments came ahead of an open hearing on Thursday to examine Trump's recent designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. The US president last month claimed Christians were being persecuted across Nigeria and later asked the Pentagon to prepare for a possible military intervention there. The allegations, which appeared to stem from pressure by US conservative Christian lobbies, were immediately rejected by Nigerian authorities and by security experts who painted a more complex picture of the country's numerous conflicts and insurgencies.
If we look at the number of fatalities in 2025, so far there's actually been more Muslims killed in these sort of religiously targeted attacks. But in 2024, the opposite was true. There were more Christians killed. So these sort of trends do vary year on year.
Trump's claims of religious persecution in Nigeria echoed similar allegations of a white genocide in South Africa. Since his second inauguration at the start of the year, the US president has also threatened to attack or invade Canada, Mexico, Greenland, Panama, and Venezuela.
Nigeria is not going to be happy about.
Well, Washington, it appears, committed to its cause. And on Tuesday, the US's top diplomat to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, met with Trinidadian-American superstar rapper and singer Nicki Minaj at the US mission to speak further about Washington's concerns for Nigeria's Christians.
I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief. I stand here as a proud New Yorker with a deep sense of gratitude that we live in a country where we can freely and safely worship God regardless of one's creed, background, or politics.
Well, we're joined now by Sam Olukoya in Lagos. Sam, how do you feel about Nicki Minaj being in the middle of all this?
Well, I think, which I'm sure many Nigerians will agree with me, it looks like a desperate attempt to use a celebrity to shape a public opinion. We are talking of somebody who is the most influential rapper one of the most influential rappers of all time, somebody with about more than 223 million followers on Instagram. So it's definitely a situation of using a musician to shape opinion, whereas I mean, she's not a politician, she's not a religious leader. I think for many Nigerians, she's not just qualified to speak on this issue. It would have been better if a politician or some other person were brought in. And to some extent, actually, it might have had some effect, given her strong followership on social media. I mean, I've checked the social media and I can see that people are talking, she as part of a debate as to whether there's a genocide in Nigeria or not. But as I said earlier on, it looks like a desperate attempt to shape public opinion.
Overall, Sam, you know, as a Nigerian watching how all of this diplomatic discourse is playing out regarding the very serious question of Nigeria's security challenges, do you feel that what you're seeing coming out of the White House, out of Washington, reflects the take on religiously motivated violence in Nigeria as you have experienced it over the years?
You see, the security situation in Nigeria is a very, very complex one. It's not as easy as Washington is trying to paint it. I agreed we have a jihadist insurgency, but the insurgency itself does not amount to genocide per se against a Christian as an individual group. What we've seen over the years, about 15 years back, is that Christians are being killed, Muslims are also being killed, and as one of your reports earlier showed, we have a variation of the statistics from years to years where you may have more Christians being killed and less Muslims being killed. So it's not a straightforward case of genocide or no genocide. It depends on how you look at the statistics. I mean, you look at the statistics and you may be mischievous in trying to interpret it that, okay, there's genocide against Christians or it's not happening. It's all about perception from individual quarters, but many Nigerians will feel that Muslims and Christians are equally being killed. You have Christian soldiers, Muslim soldiers fighting side by side against these jihadist insurgents.
Sam, I don't have much time with you, but very quickly, since all of these conversations shaped by Washington have happened, these allegations of a genocide targeting Christians uniquely and specifically, from your experience, you seen much affect this affect relations between Christian and Muslim communities in Nigeria happen?
Yes, it definitely has sparked a major debate. I mean, you have debates along sectarian lines. There are Christians who say, yes, genocide is happening. There are Muslims who say genocide is not happening. And each side is desperately trying to prove its point. You have Christians going online, going on social media to show burials, to show killings. And they say, if these killings are not genocide, then what else is genocide? You have Muslims who are saying that the Christians are Christians saying there's genocide. They're just trying to play into President Trump's hands. You have sometimes the utterances have been less than complimentary. You have a leading Muslim cleric who said Christians are just burying empty coffins to prove that there's genocide. And this has sparked a lot of outrage among the Christian communities that by saying such a thing, you have been very, very insensitive to those who have been killed by these insurgents. So that is the situation. It hasn't brought both sides together. Rather, it has really pulled them apart.
Thank you so much. Sam Olakoye, the journalist for us in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, French oil giant Total has been accused of being complicit in war crimes, torture and the killings of dozens of civilians around a valuable gas site in Mozambique.
French oil and gas giant TotalEnergies is being sued in France over claims it backed Mozambican soldiers accused of massacres at one of its sites. The European Centre for Human and Constitutional Rights accuses the company of directly financing and materially supporting the Joint Task Force, made up of Mozambican armed forces, which allegedly detained, tortured and killed dozens of civilians on its site between July and September 2021. The alleged abuses took place in the Cabo Delgado province, where TotalEnergies led a large gas project that was suspended in 2021 after a deadly jihadist attack on a nearby town. At the time, the site was still guarded by Mozambican armed forces known as the JTF, created in 2020 under an agreement between TotalEnergies' local subsidiary and the Mozambican government. This lawsuit follows reports from Politico in September 2024 denouncing massacres allegedly perpetrated on the site by the JTF. Journalists found that after its suspension, soldiers working there intercepted residents and locked around 200 men in metal containers used to protect the entrance to the compound. TotalEnergies denies the allegations.
I can confirm that TotalEnergies has no involvement with the Mozambican army. Allegations like these require proof. None has been provided. In the age of social media, slander spreads quickly. But let's wait for the courts to decide.
Patrick Pouyanné says the company has asked the Mozambican National Human Rights Commission to investigate and is confident in the judiciary handling the case. The complaint comes as the French group said last month it was ready to resume the billion-dollar project, aiming for production to start in 2029.
And finally, women in Zanzibar are learning how to light up lives in their communities. Many are being trained to become solar power technicians, and the hope is that the sector will energise the archipelago's prospects on all fronts. Brian Quinn tells us more.
Out of the darkness and into the light. In Zanzibar, one NGO is helping rural villages install solar power systems, training women as their engineers.
The tools seemed difficult to use at first, but after a short time, I managed to handle them.
The semi-autonomous archipelago off the coast of Tanzania counts some 2 million inhabitants, half of whom are not connected to the electric grid. For most, their only sources of illumination after sunset are oil lamps, whose limited light comes with acrid smoke and increased fire risk.
Kerosene has many dangers. Houses can burn down, children might drink it. We have seen many such cases. Some kids come in with burns from kerosene fires. It's a big hazard.
The East African coastal climate, though, has abundant sunshine, and rural Zanzibar has many women with deep connections to their local communities. After 6 months of training at the Solar Mama program, they're sent back to their villages with 50 household solar kits and the expertise to install and maintain them.
The community is used to seeing women nursing kids, cleaning, cooking, not going on the roof, put a panel, and then the whole house is electrified. So for us, actually, it's not only empowering, but also it's building the sustainable communities.
In addition to providing employment for women in conservative societies where gender roles are often restrictive, the program has also made it easier for children in rural areas to follow their studies after dark. So far in Zanzibar, the Solar Mamas have lit up nearly 2,000 homes.
That is incredibly cool. And I will think on this next time I go home and stare at the disconnected garden light that's been languishing there for weeks at my house. That, though, is all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.